Take a moment and just think about you from the past. Maybe a few grade levels back, or when you were in high school or college, or simply earlier in your adulthood. I'll go first. In high school, I was one of the patented weird kids. Loud, brash, unpredictable, obsessive, and a true pain in the ass for a lot of people. I look back at who I was, and I shake my head from atop my lofty pedestal of wisdom and age. But I'm getting too far behind myself. In early 2019, I got my hands on God of War. No, not that God of War. This God of War. I got into the 2018 reboot sequel because it seemed like it was trying something I wouldn't peg its predecessor for. A rich story. It seemed so far off from what the series was known for, what I knew the series as. I got into God of War because it wasn't God of War. Pause. I know what you're thinking, but I'm not about to dunk on the original God of War. If you want proof, go here. But for now, just stick with me a bit. 2018's God of War has players controlling Kratos partnered with his son Atreus as they venture into the 9 realms of Norse mythology. They have been given a quest from Faye, Kratos' wife and Atreus' mother before she passed away, to scatter her ashes from atop the highest peak in the 9 realms. All manner of people and circumstances stand in the way, pulling Kratos into a tale rife with epic battles, quiet moments, and the past coming back to haunt him in unexpected ways. And I fell straight in love with it and the sequel, Ragnarok, so many years later. What I appreciated most about the new series was that I didn't need to experience the original trilogy. Kratos would grumble of his past and its atrocities in hushed tones throughout God of War, muffled topics of disgrace and shame. But it's all in the past. By the time we join him for this adventure, Kratos has changed, and I didn't need to know everything about who he was to go on this journey. He barely wants to revisit the past himself. Now back to you. We look back at who we were in our past, and maybe we shudder or laugh or pity that person. We look back as different people. Think about how much we've changed and grown through good times and bad. These things just happen with time and experience. Back to God of War. Did I miss out on something fundamental by not playing the original trilogy before the sequels? Narrative purist that I am, I can't think of any other instances where I've flagrantly gone out of order like I did with God of War. But for all intents and purposes, I missed the train with the originals. The original God of War came out when I was in middle school, and its sequels were peppered throughout my time in high school. My household was a staunch Nintendo household, and my brothers and I were still tied up in the GameCube and the Wii. We had neither the money nor the space to spring for a PlayStation. So I justified it with more than a little overcompensation. I distanced myself from the hot new and eventually returning IP. What was God of War, after all, but this angry, ashy man swinging around flaming blades and shouting at gods and everyone else within earshot? Not my jam, I'd say, because it couldn't be my jam, I'd internalize. And that mindset stuck with me as the games were re-released and remastered on consoles I still did not have access to. I can't change any of that. Ultimately, I started God of War in the 4th main entry, completely sidestepping the original trilogy. That was then. But between Kratos in the closing moments of Ragnarok to the main conclusion of Valhalla, I got to wondering, will knowing where Kratos' journey ends lend a new perspective to how it began? Financial restrictions, storage limitations, like I said, that was then. Now, I'm an irresponsible adult who, thanks to the magic of subscription-based video game services, can finally go back and play the original God of War. Questions started to spin around my head as I prepared for this. More than whispered and regretful dialogue could convey, who was Kratos before his journeys with Atreus? How much has he changed from one series to another? How will knowing his narrative arc impact how I view him, his actions, his choices? What does Kratos mean and embody, knowing who he becomes by the end of these journeys? So I dropped a cool $18, throttled my roommate's Wi-Fi to a crawl, and got to work. I look back at who Kratos was not through conversation or plot summaries, but through action and experience. And I shuddered. But such a thing comes from age and wisdom. 10 years before Kratos came to Athens, he was tricked and blinded into killing his wife and daughter by Ares, the Greek god of war. This one instance set him on a warpath against Ares, which, in time, cascaded into eliminating the whole Greek pantheon. If there's one element that burns strongest in all three of these games, it's that nothing will stand in the way of Kratos' need for revenge, neither environment nor entity. There was the Athens town square where panicked Athenians would run around trying to escape the monsters sieging the city, only for Kratos to roll up. A savior! Surely I can help these people, I thought. But they were just as in the way as the monsters. If they weren't caught by one of Kratos' spinning blades, they were grappled and bodied to the ground when I was actually aiming for one of the snarling horde. There was no penalty, though, no negative consequence. In fact, the townspeople spit out health when they died. Or, as I called him, Lever Guy, who was doing everything he could to stall the monster's advance through the city by holding fast to a lever that controlled a bridge. Let go of the lever, bridge extends. And unfortunately for Lever Guy, Kratos needed to get across. So Lever Guy was killed by Kratos with Zeus's own thunderbolts for the sake of progress. Or the boat captain at the start of the game, consumed by the Hydra and saved by Kratos in the corpse of the monster. But alas, Kratos needed the captain's key, not the captain, dropping the man down the gullet of the dead monster. Or the imprisoned soldier in Pandora's temple, sacrificed to fire and flame, screams and protests and pleas ignored so that Kratos could proceed. Anything for the sake of progress. And honestly, that's the short version of God of War. Kratos has a mission and a target, and everything between him and that end goal is collateral damage. Sirens? No, you gotta kill them to unlock this magical door. Monsters? You gotta kill them to proceed past these spectral walls. People? You gotta kill them because they're full of health that lets you keep fighting. Kratos is introduced as a hammer set into a world with nails of various sizes. And right next to that springboard, it sets up the pony, the spectacle of violence. It's unknown how much Kratos enjoys killing, but he is clearly good at it. And for players, his design and fighting style make it fun to watch, all the way through his fateful battle against Ares and beyond. Kratos opens Pandora's box, gaining the power to kill a god, and does so. Ares falls. But that's not the end of his journey, try as Kratos might to end it. Though he ascends to take the place of Ares, there is still further to fall, so that Kratos may climb back out. God of War 2 just doubles down on both the spectacle and the violence. Perhaps Kratos is so emotionally hollowed after being denied the release of death that he pushes the boundaries of godhood, seeks a reason to tear everything down, but he quickly finds a new goal following a new betrayal: kill Zeus. And once again, not a single soul amongst the living, dead, or divine can stand in his way. The spectacle is turned up to 11, the violence is ratcheted up. Kratos rails against every obstacle that stands in his way, from legendary heroes to driven mad inventors, up to the very last of the Spartans, mistakenly killed in the dark and the shadows. Kratos pushes on, killing fate itself in order to have his revenge. All of his problems, his obstacles, everything is still a nail to be driven into the ground. Kratos has nothing to connect with now that his people are annihilated. There is only the mission. Everything is expendable. Fate itself is unwound, and Kratos marches on Mount Olympus with the primordial titans, ready to tear down the world if it means having his revenge. In his quest for the power to destroy Zeus, he breaks Poseidon, flooding the realms. Kratos is cast aside into Tartarus by those he thought his allies, made into the same expendable entity that he has seen and used others as. His resolve stoked, he drags his way out of the river Styx, tearing Hades, both realm and god, apart on the way. The dead are made to wander. Helios is torn from his body, and the world plunges into night. Hermes is separated from his winged boots, releasing a pestilence throughout the land. Hera, Hercules, Hephaestus, the Titans Kronos and Gaia all fall to Kratos' war of attrition and vengeance. Every obstacle is smashed through, every opponent ripped through, everything and everyone is expendable. To stand in the way of Kratos, in opposition or not, is to die. And then Kratos meets Pandora. A child in appearance, they had communicated with Kratos throughout his assault on Olympus. Through Pandora, Kratos could unlock Pandora's box for the second time and unleash its power against Zeus. Yet, in the 11th hour, when vengeance and the power to take it are within his grasp, Kratos tries to stop Pandora from fulfilling their purpose for how they reminded Kratos of his own daughter. In hatred and fury for Zeus, Pandora eluded Kratos to unlock the box, forcing him to lose the one creature he had chosen to protect in all of his destruction. But the box is empty. In near defeat, Kratos is given an opportunity to look inward, guided by the spirits of Pandora, his wife, and Calliope, his daughter, to truly confront himself and unlock the power to counteract all evils long dormant after opening Pandora's box years ago. Hope. Facing down his atrocities, his traumas, and his torments, Kratos forgives himself for what he has done, for what he has had to do. With renewed strength and emboldened by hope, Kratos takes his revenge against Zeus, the last vestige of evil. As the king of Olympus falls, the world is plunged into complete chaos. Kratos makes a final play. True sacrifice, releasing the hope inside him back into the world, giving it to everyone, even at the cost of his own life. But then how shallow would that redemption be if it stopped there? No, because we know Kratos lives, drags himself towards the sea, towards lands unknown. Even in the closing moments of redemption, the story and legacy of Kratos is one of death, destruction, and oblivion in the pursuit of revenge. This is who he was. Pivot with me a moment to the story of Star Wars, the mainline 6 films telling the story of Anakin Skywalker. In my experience, it's best to go through them in the order of release: A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. You hear whispers of everything that's darkened the galaxy in the past, how the Empire rose to power and Darth Vader has terrorized the systems for years. By trilogy's end, you witness the Empire's downfall and Anakin Skywalker's ultimate redemption. Then you go back and watch The Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith. You know where the political machinations all lead, where everything is going, and you see how every block in Anakin's arc is being set up for the express purpose of knocking it down and twisting him into Darth Vader. Similar to the Skywalker saga, by only hearing whispers of what Kratos has done in the past, it made revisiting that past that much more tragic. It's one thing to hear about what he had done, or even to read a plot synopsis of his brutality, but it's another thing to genuinely witness the depths of Kratos' rage. And that made a difference in how I experienced his narrative. Knowing where his journey takes him, where he ultimately ends up, how far he must still climb in his efforts to be better, to be more, to be truly redeemed, it makes his earlier adventures, violent and vengeance-fueled as they were, more meaningful. As part of the whole, rather than the entirety, they hold more weight. They are the beginning of Kratos' journey for redemption. He looks back at who he was and pities that man, but he has also grown from that man. We are all shaped by who we were. I couldn't be the person that I am now without having once been a damn fool of a kid and doing some hard introspection throughout my life. The God of War series is similarly shaped by and stands in contrast to its earlier narratives. Kratos stands apart from his old self, acknowledging that this old Kratos existed, but striving to build on top of that version of himself. He struggles to reinvent himself, to contrast himself. God of War is a series about contrast. From something as surface level as the gameplay, going from a hack-and-slash combo-driven corridor-based assault next to a nuanced close-quarters tag-team brawl, In Kratos himself, once fueled by rage and vengeance, now driven by caring and love. In fighting, once to destroy everything, now to protect something. Solitude and isolation gives way to community and connection. Violence, once committed for violence's sake, now serves as a means to protect what precious little needs defending. The noise and din of battle and destruction against the stillness of nature and exploration. Of once defaulting to destruction, now staying the hand for words and conversation. Constantly barreling forward to the next combat encounter gives way to a richer sense of discovery and quiet. Longer valleys between the peaks of battle, as it were. The stubbornness of stagnation, of digging in one's heels even if it destroys everything, leaving the way open for growth, for knowing when to step up, when to step back, when to listen, and when to act. Anger and acceptance. War and peace. Despair and hope. Kratos' true legacy is not in the destruction he has wrought or even the hope he puts into the world. It is learning to accept who we were, using it to change into the person we have the potential to become. In my infinite hindsight, that, 20 years after its inception, is what makes God of War worth experiencing, even a little out of order. Okay, wait, we need to talk about the sex minigame. On the one hand, yeah, it belongs more in those older games. I can't see them justifying it in the new series, vibe for vibe. But the old games, yeah, it fits. Also, yeah, sex was a hot button controversy in games back then, and controversy could help with publicity, could help with sales. You know how it is. But on the other hand, that was what I was freaking out about way back when. It's just a bunch of noises, off-screen shenanigans, and Kratos gets consent. He's a real one. Hell, I missed the first and second game's minigames, so clearly they weren't that pivotal to the story. I thought the whole thing was going to be so much worse and weirder and more upsetting, and it's just funny? Mishandling of female NPCs, my ass. Damn it. Oh, and in case it needs to be said or you skip to this section, I did enjoy the original trilogy, and I appreciate what it did for the genre. And I enjoyed it that much more knowing what was yet to come for the Ghost of Sparta.